The therapist's words hit me like a sledgehammer to my chest. "I've been your husband's lover for 5 years." The fluorescent lights above seemed to flicker as my world crumbled around me. "My name is Diane Matthews. I'm 65 years old, and I live in Denver, Colorado." Just moments before, I had walked into Dr. Sarah Chen's office, clutching a tissue box, desperate to save my 35-year marriage to Robert. For weeks, I had been planning our 35th wedding anniversary celebration, scheduled for this Saturday. I had booked the same mountain lodge where we honeymooned, invited our 3 children and 7 grandchildren, and even commissioned a custom photo album chronicling our decades together. The cost? $8,500 of my retirement savings. Every penny felt worth it to rekindle what I thought was a marriage going through a rough patch. Robert had been distant lately, coming home late, taking mysterious phone calls, claiming work stress. When I suggested couples therapy, he reluctantly agreed. "Fine, Diane, if it makes you happy," he had said with a dismissive wave. I chose Dr. Chen because her website promised discretion and specialized in marriages in crisis. Now, sitting across from this polished woman in her 40s, her perfectly manicured hands folded on her mahogany desk, I realized I had walked straight into a trap. Her confession hung in the air like poison gas. My throat constricted. My hands trembled uncontrollably. "You're lying," I whispered, though something deep in my gut knew she wasn't. The way she avoided my eyes while delivering the devastating news, the slight tremor in her voice. These weren't the actions of someone fabricating a story. Dr. Chen reached for a manila folder. "Mrs. Matthews, there's more you need to know. What I'm about to tell you will explain everything. Why Robert suggested me specifically. Why he was so eager for you to start therapy. Why he's been pulling away from you." My vision began to blur. The room felt like it was spinning. 35 years of marriage, 35 years of believing in the man I met at a church picnic in 1989, the man who promised to love and honor me until death do us part, the man I had 3 children with, the man I had sacrificed my teaching career for when he needed support building his construction company. "The affair is just the beginning, Diane," Dr. Chen continued, her voice gaining strength. "Robert didn't just want you to know about us. He wanted you here today for a different reason entirely. He wanted me to prepare you for what's coming next week." I gripped the arms of the leather chair so hard my knuckles turned white. Whatever was coming next, I knew it would shatter not just my marriage, but everything I thought I knew about my life. Outside, Denver's autumn wind rattled the windows of the high-rise office building. Inside, my world was about to collapse in ways I never could have imagined. The wedding ring on my finger, the same ring Robert had slipped on 35 years ago while promising eternal love, suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Dr. Chen opened the folder and pulled out a stack of papers. "Your husband has been planning this for 2 years, Diane, and I'm afraid he's not the man you think he is. If you're finding this story as shocking as I did living through it, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. I need to know I'm not alone in this. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Your support means everything as I share what happened next." Dr. Chen's hands shook slightly as she spread the documents across her desk like a dealer laying out cards that would determine my fate. "Diane, before I continue, I need you to understand that I never intended for things to go this far. When Robert first came to me 2 years ago, he claimed he needed help dealing with a mentally unstable wife." The words hit me like ice water. "Mentally unstable?" I repeated, my voice barely audible. He painted a picture of a woman losing her grip on reality, someone who was becoming paranoid, making wild accusations, spending money recklessly. He said he needed professional guidance on how to handle the situation delicately. Dr. Chen's professional mask was slipping, revealing something that looked almost like remorse. He showed me bank statements, told me about incidents that seemed to support his claims. I stared at the papers before me. Bank statements from accounts I didn't recognize, credit card bills with charges I had never made, medical reports from doctors I had never seen. My maiden name, Diane Harrison, appeared on several documents alongside diagnoses I couldn't pronounce. "These are all forgeries," I gasped, recognizing my forged signature on several forms. "I realize that now," Dr. Chen admitted. "But Robert is very convincing. He's charming, articulate, and he came with what appeared to be substantial evidence. He told me he loved you deeply, but was worried about your declining mental state affecting your children and grandchildren." The manipulation was staggering. While I had been planning anniversary celebrations and worrying about his late nights at work, Robert had been constructing an elaborate lie about my sanity. Every time I had questioned his behavior, every moment of intuition that something was wrong, he had been documenting it as evidence of my supposed mental breakdown. The affair began 6 months after our session started, Dr. Chen continued. Robert was vulnerable, or at least he appeared to be. He spoke about feeling isolated, unable to connect with someone who was losing touch with reality. I violated every ethical boundary I've ever sworn to uphold. I thought about the $12,000 I had withdrawn from our joint savings account last month, money I had planned to surprise Robert with for a second honeymoon trip to Europe, money that was now sitting in an account he didn't know about, money that might be the only thing standing between me and complete financial ruin if these documents were part of a larger plan. What does he want from me? I asked, though I was beginning to understand the horrifying scope of his scheme. Dr. Chen pulled out another document, this one bearing the letterhead of a prestigious psychiatric facility in Colorado Springs. Robert has been building a case for involuntary commitment, Diane. These forged medical records, combined with my professional testimony about your supposed deteriorating mental state, would be enough to have you declared mentally incompetent. The room began to spin again. Involuntary commitment meant losing control of my finances, my home, my freedom. It meant Robert could take everything we had built together and disappear with his lover while I rotted in a facility, branded as a woman who had lost her mind. Your anniversary celebration this weekend, Dr. Chen said quietly. Robert plans to use it as the final piece of evidence. He's told your children that you've been exhibiting increasingly erratic behavior. He's planning to stage some kind of incident at the lodge, make it appear that you've had a complete psychological break in front of your entire family. The anniversary I had planned with such love and hope was meant to be the trap that would steal my freedom forever. Every detail I had carefully arranged, every penny I had spent, was going to be weaponized against me by the man I had loved for over 3 decades. But as I sat in that office, surrounded by the evidence of my husband's betrayal, something inside me began to change. The shock was wearing off, replaced by something harder, something that burned like molten steel in my chest. Robert had made one crucial mistake in his elaborate plan. He had underestimated the woman he had been married to for 35 years, the woman who had helped him build his business from nothing, the woman who had raised 3 successful children while managing household finances with precision, the woman who had always been stronger than he gave her credit for. There's something else, Diane, Dr. Chen said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Your children, they're involved. The words hit me like a physical blow. That's impossible, I breathed. My children would never. Robert convinced them that this was for your own good, she interrupted, pulling out a series of text messages on her phone. Look at these conversations. With trembling hands, I took the phone and began reading. Messages between Dr. Chen and my eldest son, Michael. Messages that made my blood run cold. Michael, Mom's been getting worse. Dad says she accused the neighbor of stealing her mail again. Dr. Chen, these paranoid episodes are concerning. Has she been taking her medication? Michael, what medication? Dad said you prescribed something but she refuses to take it. Dr. Chen, we may need to consider more intensive intervention soon. What medication? I demanded. I've never been prescribed any medication by you. Exactly, but your family believes you have been. Robert has been telling them that you're refusing treatment for a diagnosed mental condition. He's shown them fake prescription bottles, staged phone calls with my office, even forged notes supposedly from me. I scrolled through more messages, seeing conversations with my daughter Jennifer and my youngest son, David. Each exchange painted a picture of a woman spiraling out of control, refusing help, becoming a danger to herself and others. My own children believed I was losing my mind. Jennifer thinks you've been hiding money around the house obsessively, Dr. Chen continued. David believes you've been making paranoid accusations about Robert having an affair, which, ironically, made it easier for Robert to dismiss your growing suspicions as symptoms of your supposed illness. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. Every time I had voiced concerns about Robert's behavior, every moment of intuition that something was wrong had been twisted into evidence of mental instability. When I found lipstick on his collar and confronted him, he told the children I was having paranoid delusions. When I questioned his late nights, he framed it as obsessive, controlling behavior. The anniversary celebration, I said, the pieces falling into place. They're all going to be there to witness my supposed breakdown. Robert has been coaching them on what to watch for, Dr. Chen confirmed. Erratic behavior, emotional outbursts, confusion. He's told them that the stress of the anniversary might trigger a severe episode that would finally convince you to accept help. I thought about the conversations I'd had with my children over the past month. Jennifer's concerned questions about my health. Michael's gentle suggestions that maybe I should talk to someone. David's offers to help me organize my finances. They weren't being loving and supportive. They were monitoring me for signs of the mental illness they believed I was hiding. The $25,000 inheritance I had received from my mother's estate last year suddenly made sense. Robert had been furious when the money came directly to me, insisting it should go into our joint account. When I refused, wanting to keep it as a separate nest egg, he had told the children I was becoming secretive and paranoid about money. "How long do I have?" I asked. "The commitment papers are already prepared," Dr. Chen said. "Robert plans to have you admitted next Monday right after the anniversary weekend. He's scheduled a family intervention with a psychiatrist who believes you're a danger to yourself based on my fabricated reports." I stood up abruptly, my chair rolling backward. The room that had felt like a trap just minutes before now felt like a war room. "Dr. Chen," I said, my voice steady for the first time since entering her office. "You said you never intended for things to go this far. Do you want a chance to make this right?" She looked up at me, something like hope flickering in her eyes. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Robert made one mistake in his perfect plan," I said, grabbing my purse. "He trusted you to be as weak as he is. But you're not, are you? You're going to help me turn his own trap against him." For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. The woman who had built a life from nothing. The woman who had raised 3 children while Robert focused on his business. The woman who had always been the real strength in our family, even when no one else could see it. Robert wanted to play games with my mind. He was about to learn that he had severely underestimated his opponent. Dr. Chen stared at me for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "What do you need me to do?" "First, I need copies of everything. All the forged documents, the fake medical records, the correspondence with my children, everything that proves this conspiracy." I began pacing the small office, my mind racing with possibilities. "Second, I need you to help me document the truth." Over the next 2 hours, Dr. Chen and I methodically went through every piece of Robert's elaborate deception. She had kept meticulous records, and now I understood why. Deep down, she had known something wasn't right about Robert's claims, and her professional training had compelled her to document everything. "He was always very specific about timing," she explained as we copied files. "He wanted our affair to be documented in my appointment logs. He insisted I write detailed notes about your supposed symptoms. He even brought a recording device to some of our meetings, claiming he wanted to remember my advice about how to handle your episodes." The recording device detail made my skin crawl. Robert had been collecting evidence against me while simultaneously betraying our marriage vows, but his obsession with documentation was about to become his downfall. "I need you to call him," I said. "Tell him you're worried about proceeding with the commitment plan. Tell him you need more evidence of my instability before you'll testify." Dr. Chen looked confused. "But why would we want to delay?" "Because we're going to give him exactly what he wants," I interrupted. "Evidence of my erratic behavior. We're going to stage everything he's been planning to stage, but we're going to control the narrative." I pulled out my phone and called my brother Tom, who lived 2 hours away in Colorado Springs. Tom was a retired police detective, and if anyone would believe my story and help me gather evidence, it would be him. "Tom, I need your help," I said when he answered. "I can't explain everything over the phone, but I need you to bring your old surveillance equipment to Denver tonight." While I made arrangements with Tom, Dr. Chen continued copying files. The scope of Robert's planning was staggering. He had been setting up this scheme for nearly 2 years, carefully building a case that would have been nearly impossible to refute without this evidence. "Diane," Dr. Chen said suddenly, "there's something else you need to know about the money." I looked up from the documents I was reviewing. "What money?" "Robert has been moving assets for months. He showed me bank statements during our sessions, bragging about his financial planning skills. He's transferred over $400,000 from your joint accounts into offshore holdings. The construction business, your retirement funds, even the $50,000 from your mother's life insurance policy that you thought was still in savings. The number hit me like a physical blow. $400,000. Our entire life savings gone. The money I had worked for, saved for, planned our future around. Robert had stolen it all while plotting to have me declared mentally incompetent. But instead of despair, I felt a cold fury settling over me. Robert had made another mistake. He had stolen community property, which meant he had committed a felony. And if I could prove he had done it while planning to have me falsely committed, the charges would be even more severe. "Does he know you have access to this financial information?" I asked. "He showed it to me voluntarily," Dr. Chen replied. "He wanted me to understand that he was preparing for a future where he would need to manage all the household finances himself. He said he was being responsible, getting everything in order before your condition deteriorated further." I almost laughed at the irony. Robert's arrogance, his need to impress his lover with his planning skills, had provided us with evidence of theft, fraud, and conspiracy that would destroy him in court. My phone buzzed with a text from Tom. "On my way. Bringing backup. What's your 20? "Dr. Chen," I said, "I need you to understand something. By Monday morning, this whole nightmare is going to be over. But between now and then, you're going to have to trust me completely. Can you do that?" She looked at the evidence spread across her desk, evidence that would destroy her career and probably land her in prison if it became public without context. Evidence that showed her involvement in an elaborate conspiracy to defraud and falsely imprison an innocent woman. "Yes," she said quietly, "I can do that." "Good," I said, gathering the copied documents into my purse, "because we're about to turn Robert's perfect plan into his worst nightmare. And it all starts with a family anniversary celebration that he'll never forget." That evening, I sat in my kitchen staring at the phone, knowing that the next call would set everything in motion. Tom had arrived an hour earlier with enough surveillance equipment to stock a small security company, and we had spent the time planning our strategy down to the minute. "Remember," Tom said, adjusting a tiny camera hidden in the flower arrangement on my dining room table, "the goal is to get him to confess to as much as possible. Don't push too hard. Let him hang himself with his own rope." I dialed Robert's number, my hands surprisingly steady. After 35 years of marriage, I knew exactly which buttons to push to get the reaction I needed. "Robert, honey, I just had the most disturbing therapy session with Dr. Chen," I said when he answered, injecting just the right amount of confused distress into my voice. "What happened, Diane?" His voice was immediately alert, probably excited that his plan was moving forward. "She's saying the strangest things about our marriage, about my mental health. She claims you've been discussing me with her for months, talking about episodes I supposedly had that I can't even remember." I paused, letting my voice crack slightly. "Robert, I'm scared. I think she might be trying to turn you against me." The silence on the other end lasted just a beat too long. "Diane, sweetheart, maybe you should come home so we can talk about this in person." "I'm already home," I said. "Can you come now? I really need you." 30 minutes later, Robert walked through our front door with the concerned expression of a loving husband. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have found his performance convincing. As it was, watching him embrace me while knowing he was planning to destroy my life made my skin crawl. "Tell me exactly what Dr. Chen said," he said, guiding me to the couch where Tom had positioned our best recording equipment. "She claims you told her I've been having paranoid episodes," I began, watching his face carefully. "She said you showed her bank statements and medical records." "Robert, what medical records? I've never given her permission to discuss my case with you." Robert's eyes flickered, just for a moment, before his mask of concern slipped back into place. "Diane, honey, I think your memory might be playing tricks on you again. We discussed this. You signed releases for Dr. Chen to include me in your treatment." "I signed what?" I asked, genuinely confused since I had never signed any such thing. "The consent forms," Robert said patiently, in the tone one might use with a confused child. "You were having one of your episodes that day, so you might not remember clearly." There it was, the first admission. Tom's equipment was recording Robert claiming I had episodes that affected my memory, something we both knew was completely false. "What episodes?" I pressed. "Robert, I don't understand what you're talking about." "Sweetheart," Robert said, taking my hands in his, "this is exactly what Dr. Chen and I have been worried about. You've been having memory lapses, moments of confusion. Last month you accused Mrs. Patterson next door of stealing your mail, remember? And you've been hiding money around the house like you don't trust the banks." I stared at him in amazement. Even now, even while confessing to fabricating evidence of my mental illness, he maintained the caring husband act. "I never accused Mrs. Patterson of anything," I said quietly. "Diane, you called the police on her twice," Robert insisted. "Officer Martinez had to come explain that mail delivery delays weren't theft. You were so upset, so convinced she was out to get you." The detail about Officer Martinez was brilliant and completely fabricated. Robert had clearly spent time crafting believable lies, adding specific details that would make his stories more convincing to anyone who heard them secondhand. "The money hiding," he continued. "Dr. Chen thinks it might be related to anxiety about financial security. She says it's common in women your age, especially when combined with early cognitive decline." "Cognitive decline?" I repeated, letting genuine shock color my voice. "The doctor says it's nothing to be ashamed of," Robert said gently. "Memory issues, paranoid thoughts, difficulty managing finances, they're all early signs. That's why she thinks the anniversary celebration might be overwhelming for you. She's worried about how you'll handle the stress." I felt Tom's presence in the next room, recording every word of Robert's performance. The man I had loved for 35 years was sitting in our living room, calmly describing symptoms of dementia he had invented, painting a picture of a woman losing her grip on reality. "Maybe Dr. Chen is right," I said slowly. "Maybe I should cancel the anniversary party. I don't want to embarrass our family if I'm not well." No, Robert said quickly, too quickly. "We can't cancel now. The kids are so excited to celebrate with us. Besides, Dr. Chen thinks it might be good for you to have family support during this difficult time." There was the trap. Robert needed the anniversary celebration to proceed because it was the final stage of his plan. Whatever he had arranged to happen at that mountain lodge, it required our children to be present as witnesses. "Will you stay close to me during the party?" I asked, playing the role of a frightened woman clinging to her husband's strength. "Of course, sweetheart," Robert said, pulling me closer. "I'll be right there with you every moment, and if you start feeling confused or overwhelmed, I'll help you through it." As he held me, whispering reassurances about how he would take care of everything, I thought about the $400,000 he had stolen, the false medical records he had created, the months of planning that had gone into destroying my life. In less than 48 hours, Robert's perfect anniversary celebration was going to become the scene of his complete downfall, and he was walking right into it, with a smile on his face. Saturday morning dawned crisp and clear as we drove toward the mountain lodge where we had honeymooned 35 years earlier. Robert hummed cheerfully as he navigated the winding roads, occasionally reaching over to pat my hand, with what anyone watching would interpret as loving concern. "Feeling okay, sweetheart?" he asked as we pulled into the lodge's parking area. "Not too overwhelmed?" "I'm fine," I said, though I let a slight tremor creep into my voice. "Just nervous about seeing everyone." Our children had arrived earlier to help set up the celebration. As we walked toward the main building, I spotted Jennifer arranging flowers on the outdoor terrace where dinner would be served. She looked up and smiled, but I caught the careful way she studied my face, looking for signs of the instability Robert had primed her to expect. "Mom," she approached with arms outstretched, but her embrace felt tentative, watchful. "You look wonderful. How are you feeling?" "Oh, you know," I said with deliberate vagueness. "Some days are better than others." I watched Jennifer's eyes flick to Robert, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. The signal was clear. Yes, she's having one of those days. Monitor carefully. Michael appeared from inside the lodge, followed by David and their families. 7 grandchildren ranging from 6 to 16 surrounded me with genuine affection, their joy untainted by the adult conspiracy unfolding around us. For a moment, watching their bright faces, I almost forgot I was performing in an elaborate sting operation. "Grandma, wait until you see the surprise we made for you," my youngest granddaughter, Emma, announced excitedly. "Now, Emma," Jennifer said quickly, "remember what we talked about. Grandma might need to rest if she gets tired." "I'm not tired," I said, allowing a note of confusion to enter my voice. "Why would I be tired? I just woke up." Robert immediately stepped closer. "Diane, honey, it's almost noon. We've been traveling for 3 hours." 3 hours? I looked around as if seeing the lodge for the first time. "But we just left the house." The concerned looks that passed between my children were exactly what Robert had been counting on. They believed they were witnessing the cognitive confusion he had been warning them about. In reality, they were seeing an Academy Award-worthy performance designed to expose the truth. Tom had positioned himself at a nearby table as a lodge employee, his detective instincts allowing him to blend seamlessly into the background while managing our surveillance equipment. The tiny cameras hidden in the flower arrangements and decorations would capture every moment of what was about to unfold. "Maybe we should get you settled in your room," Michael suggested gently. "You can rest before dinner." "Rest?" I looked at him with genuine puzzlement that I didn't have to fake. "Michael, why is everyone talking about me resting? I planned this whole celebration. I want to enjoy it." "Of course you do, Mom," David said, exchanging another look with his siblings. "We just want to make sure you're comfortable." As the afternoon progressed, I carefully orchestrated moments of apparent confusion, while Tom's equipment captured everything. I forgot conversations from earlier in the day. I asked repeated questions about where we were and why we were there. I expressed paranoid concerns about the lodge staff watching me. Each incident was small, believable, and exactly the kind of behavior Robert had conditioned our children to expect. They responded with increasing worry, huddling in concerned conferences while Robert played the role of patient, devoted husband dealing with his wife's declining mental state. "Should we call Dr. Chen?" I heard Jennifer whisper to Robert during one of these conferences. "Let's see how she does through dinner," Robert replied. Dr. Chen said the stress might peak during the actual celebration. The actual celebration. I realized that whatever Robert had planned, it was going to happen during the formal dinner when all the family would be gathered together, when there would be maximum witnesses to my supposed breakdown. As evening approached and we gathered on the terrace for dinner, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The beautiful mountain setting, the warmth of my family's presence, the knowledge that justice was about to be served, it all combined into something that felt almost like peace. Robert raised his wine glass as the sun set behind the mountains. "I'd like to propose a toast," he announced, "to my beautiful wife, Diane, and to 35 years of marriage that have been the greatest gift of my life." The irony was so perfect, it was almost funny. Here he was, toasting our marriage while planning to destroy me, surrounded by family members who believed they were about to witness my mental collapse, while cameras recorded every word for the evidence that would send him to prison. "To Diane," our children echoed, raising their glasses. I smiled and sipped my wine, knowing that in the next hour, Robert's carefully constructed world was going to come crashing down around him. And the beautiful part was, he was going to do it to himself. As dinner concluded and our grandchildren ran off to play in the lodge's game room, Robert stood up with a somber expression that immediately caught everyone's attention. "Family, I need to talk to all of you about something important," he began, his voice heavy with manufactured emotion. "As you've probably noticed, your mother hasn't been herself lately." Here it was, the moment Robert had been building toward for 2 years. I gripped my wine glass tighter, preparing for the performance of my lifetime. "I've been hoping she would get better on her own," Robert continued. "But Dr. Chen thinks it's time for more intensive help, professional care." Jennifer reached across the table to take my hand. "Mom, we're all here for you. We love you." "Help?" I said, letting my voice rise slightly. "What kind of help? I don't need help. I planned this whole celebration myself." "Diane, sweetheart," Robert said gently, "you've been having episodes, memory problems. Earlier today you didn't remember the drive up here. Yesterday you accused me of hiding your medication." "What medication?" I demanded, playing confused and frightened. "I don't take any medication." "See?" Robert turned to our children. "This is exactly what Dr. Chen warned us about. She's blocking out entire conversations, denying things that happened just hours ago." Michael looked stricken. "Mom, you called me last week crying because you couldn't find the money you thought you'd hidden in the basement. You said someone was stealing from you." I stared at him in genuine shock. "I never called you about any money in the basement, Michael." "You did, Mom," he insisted gently. "You were so upset. You said Dad was lying to you about bank statements." The precision of the lie was breathtaking. Robert had been manufacturing these episodes for months, creating false memories in our children's minds by telling them about phone calls that never happened, incidents that never occurred. They genuinely believed they had witnessed my mental decline. "I think," Robert said heavily, "it's time to tell you all the truth about your mother's condition." He pulled out a folder, the same type Dr. Chen had shown me, but this one was filled with the forged medical records meant to support his case. Dr. Chen has been evaluating your mother for several months. The diagnosis isn't easy to hear. Robert, no, I said, standing up suddenly and letting my chair fall backward. Don't you dare! Early onset dementia with paranoid features, Robert announced to our children, who sat in stunned silence. Dr. Chen says it's progressing rapidly. The episodes are getting worse, more frequent. That's not true, I shouted, letting genuine emotion fuel my performance. I am not sick. You're lying to them. Mom, David said gently, please sit down. Let's talk about this calmly. Calmly? I laughed, a sound with a slight edge of hysteria. Your father is telling you I'm insane and you want me to be calm? He's been meeting with that doctor behind my back, planning to have me locked up. The words were true, but to my children, they sounded like the paranoid ravings Robert had conditioned them to expect. Jennifer actually moved closer to Robert as if seeking protection from my outburst. Diane, Robert said in his patient, long-suffering voice, Dr. Chen never met with me behind your back. You were there for every session. You just don't remember. Stop lying, I screamed, throwing my wine glass to the ground where it shattered dramatically. I know what you're doing. I know about the money you've been hiding. I know about her. Her? Robert's eyes flashed, just for a moment, before his concerned expression returned. Sweetheart, there is no her. This is exactly the kind of paranoid thinking Dr. Chen warned us about. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. I turned to face my children directly, letting tears stream down my face. Your father is having an affair, I announced. With my therapist, they've been planning this together. All of this, the medical records, the stories about my episodes, even this anniversary celebration. It's all designed to make you think I'm crazy so they can have me committed and steal everything we've worked for. The silence that followed was deafening. My children looked at me with expressions of heartbreak and pity. To them, I had just confirmed everything Robert had told them about my mental state. Paranoid accusations, conspiracy theories, delusions of persecution. Mom, Jennifer said softly, tears in her own eyes. Dad would never do that. He loves you. He's been taking care of you through all of this. The money, I continued, playing my role to perfection. $400,000. He's moved it all offshore. Check the accounts. Make him show you the accounts. Robert looked at our children with the expression of a man watching his beloved wife destroy herself with her own delusions. I'll call Dr. Chen, he said quietly. Maybe she can help us through this crisis. As he pulled out his phone, I caught a glimpse of his expression when he thought no one was looking. Satisfaction, relief. Everything was going exactly according to his plan. What Robert didn't know was that Tom had been positioned outside the dining room, recording everything through the windows. He had captured not just my breakdown, but Robert's micro-expressions, his carefully orchestrated responses, and most importantly, his phone conversation that was about to begin. Dr. Chen? Robert said into the phone, loud enough for everyone to hear. Yes, it's happening exactly as you predicted. I think it's time for the emergency intervention we discussed. And there it was, the final piece of evidence we needed. Robert had just confirmed, in front of witnesses and recording equipment, that he and Dr. Chen had planned this entire scenario in advance. The trap was complete. Now came the moment of truth. As Robert finished his phone call with Dr. Chen, arranging for what he believed would be my emergency psychiatric evaluation and commitment, Tom stepped onto the terrace. To my family, he appeared to be a lodge employee bringing coffee service. But the recording device in his hand was capturing everything. Dr. Chen is driving up from Denver, Robert announced to our children. She'll be here within 2 hours to evaluate your mother and determine the best course of action. The best course of action? I repeated, my voice climbing toward hysteria. You mean having me locked up so you can run off with your mistress? Mom, please, Michael said, approaching me cautiously as if I might become violent. There is no mistress. Dad is trying to help you. What happened next was the most difficult part of my performance. I had to convince my own children that I was dangerous. You don't believe me? I shrieked, grabbing a dinner knife from the table. You think I'm crazy? I'll show you crazy. The gasps from my family were genuine as I held the knife up, waving it dramatically while backing toward the terrace railing. I wasn't actually threatening anyone. Tom and I had choreographed this moment carefully, but to observers, it looked like a complete psychotic break. Diane, put the knife down, Robert said, his voice perfectly calibrated between firm and gentle. "You're scaring the children." "The children?" I laughed wildly. "The children don't even believe their own mother. They believe your lies instead." Jennifer was crying now, her hands covering her mouth in horror. David had pulled out his phone, probably calling 911. Michael was slowly approaching me with his hands raised, speaking in the soothing tone one uses with dangerous mental patients. And Robert was filming everything with his phone, making sure he had video evidence of my complete breakdown to show Dr. Chen and any judge who might question his commitment order. "I know what you're all thinking," I continued, brandishing the knife. "Poor Diane, finally lost her mind completely. Well, let me tell you something about your precious father." This was it, the moment where I revealed the truth in a way that would seem like the ravings of a madwoman, ensuring that Robert would never see it coming. "He's stolen $400,000 from our accounts," I screamed. "He's got fake medical records. He's been planning this for 2 years. And his lover is the therapist who's going to have me committed." "Mom, that's enough," David said firmly, reaching for the knife. "You're going to hurt yourself." I let him take the knife, then collapsed dramatically into a chair, sobbing. "He's going to take everything," I whispered, "everything we built together. And you're going to let him because you think I'm insane." Robert knelt beside my chair, the picture of a devoted husband comforting his mentally ill wife. "It's going to be okay, Diane," he murmured, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Dr. Chen will help us figure out the best treatment options." As he held me, whispering reassurances, I felt his body relax with relief. He believed he had won. The performance had been perfect. His wife had just exhibited textbook symptoms of paranoid delusions with violent tendencies, all witnessed and recorded by their children. What Robert didn't realize was that Tom had captured not just my breakdown, but Robert's reaction to it. The satisfaction in his eyes when I grabbed the knife, the way he immediately started filming, the careful orchestration of his responses. Most importantly, Tom had recorded the phone conversation with Dr. Chen, including her end of the conversation confirming their pre-planned intervention. "Robert," I said quietly, my voice exhausted from the performance, "when Dr. Chen gets here, will you promise me something?" "Anything, sweetheart," he replied, still playing the loving husband role. "Will you ask her to explain to our children why she's been meeting with you privately? Will you ask her to show them the medical records she's been keeping about me?" I felt him stiffen slightly, but his voice remained gentle. "Of course, Diane. Dr. Chen will explain everything to help them understand your condition." "Good," I whispered, "because I have some questions too, about the bank accounts you showed her, about the offshore transfers, about the 5 years you've been sleeping with her." The silence that followed was different from before. This time, it wasn't the shocked silence of a family watching their mother's breakdown. It was the silence of people beginning to realize that something was very, very wrong. Robert's mask slipped for just a moment, long enough for our children to see something flicker across his face that had nothing to do with loving concern. "Diane," he said carefully, "you're confused again." "Am I?" I looked up at him, and for the first time that evening, let him see that my eyes were completely clear and rational. "We'll find out soon enough, won't we?" In the distance, headlights appeared on the mountain road. Dr. Chen was arriving right on schedule, ready to play her part in what she believed was the final act of their perfect crime. She had no idea she was about to walk into a trap 2 years in the making. Dr. Chen arrived at the lodge looking appropriately concerned and professional, carrying a leather briefcase that I knew contained commitment papers already prepared with my name. She embraced Robert with what appeared to be colleague-appropriate sympathy, then approached me cautiously. "Diane, how are you feeling?" she asked in her practiced therapeutic voice. "I'm feeling like a woman whose husband and therapist have been conspiring to steal her life," I replied calmly. The shift in my demeanor was immediate and unmistakable. Gone was the hysterical, confused woman from an hour before. My voice was steady, my eyes clear, my posture confident. Dr. Chen's professional mask flickered with uncertainty. "Diane has been having a very difficult evening," Robert interjected quickly. "The episode was quite severe. I think we should proceed with the evaluation we discussed." "Episode?" I stood up slowly, facing my children who were staring at me with growing confusion. "Let me tell you about episodes. Let me tell you about the episodes your father has been fabricating for 2 years." I walked to the terrace railing where Tom had positioned our equipment, pulling out copies of the documents Dr. Chen and I had prepared that morning. Michael, you remember that phone call where I supposedly cried about money hidden in the basement? I held up a phone record. According to these cell tower records, your father called you from his office that day. Not me. He used a voice modifier app to sound like a distressed woman. Michael took the paper with shaking hands, his face pale as he studied the evidence. Jennifer, that medical emergency last month when you thought I was having chest pains and Dad rushed me to Dr. Chen's office? I handed her another document. There's no record of any emergency visit, but there is a record of Dad and Dr. Chen meeting for 2 hours that afternoon at a hotel downtown. That's impossible, Jennifer whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. David, remember when Dad told you I was refusing to take prescribed medication? I pulled out another paper. Here's Dr. Chen's complete patient database. I've never been prescribed anything. There is no medical file for Diane Matthews in her system because I was never actually her patient. Dr. Chen stepped forward. Her face flushed. Diane, you're taking private medical information out of context. Private medical information? I laughed, but there was no hysteria in it now. You mean the information you've been sharing with my husband for 2 years while conducting an affair? The fake diagnoses you created to support his plan to have me committed? I turned to face Robert, who was standing frozen by the realization that his perfect plan was collapsing around him. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out, Robert? Did you think I was actually stupid enough to believe that my own therapist would suddenly start sharing confidential information with my husband? Diane, you're having another episode, Robert said desperately. This paranoid thinking is exactly what you've been training our children to expect, I finished. Every time I questioned your behavior, every moment of intuition that something was wrong, you turned it into evidence of mental illness, but you made one crucial mistake. I walked to where Tom was standing and took the recording device from his hands. You underestimated the woman you married, the woman who built a business alongside you, the woman who managed our household finances while you focused on construction, the woman who always knew when you were lying, even 35 years ago. I pressed play on the recorder, and Robert's voice filled the evening air. Dr. Chen says it's nothing to be ashamed of. Memory issues, paranoid thoughts, difficulty managing finances, they're all early signs. Our children stared at their father as his own words condemned him. That was recorded 3 hours ago, I announced, before my supposed breakdown, before Dr. Chen arrived, before any emergency evaluation was needed. Robert was describing symptoms I don't have, a condition I've never been diagnosed with, by a doctor who's been his lover for 5 years. Dr. Chen had gone completely white. Diane, you need to understand. I understand perfectly, I cut her off. I understand that you violated every ethical boundary in your profession. I understand that you helped my husband forge medical records, steal $400,000 from our joint accounts, and plan to have me falsely committed to a psychiatric facility. I turned to my children, who were looking between their parents with expressions of horror and growing comprehension. I understand that your father convinced you I was losing my mind, so that when this moment came, when I accused him of betrayal and theft, you would think it was just another symptom of my supposed illness. The money, Michael said slowly. Dad, what happened to the money? Robert's silence was answer enough. $400,000, I continued. Our retirement fund, my inheritance from my mother, the life insurance money from Dad's policy, all transferred to offshore accounts over the past 18 months while Robert and Dr. Chen planned my disappearance. Jennifer was crying now, but these weren't tears of concern for my mental health. They were tears of rage and betrayal. How could you do this to her? She demanded, whirling on her father. How could you do this to our family? Robert's carefully constructed facade finally crumbled completely. You don't understand, he said desperately. Your mother, she's not the woman you think she is. She's controlling, manipulative. I couldn't live like that anymore. So you decided to destroy her instead? David's voice was ice cold. You decided to steal her money and have her committed to a mental institution? I was trying to help her, Robert shouted. I was trying to get her the treatment she needs. With your mistress as her doctor? Michael stepped toward his father, his hands clenched into fists. While stealing her inheritance and planning to disappear? The beautiful irony was that Robert had orchestrated his own downfall. He had insisted on the family gathering to witness my breakdown. He had documented everything to strengthen his case. He had created the perfect audience for his own exposure and destruction. As sirens wailed in the distance, Tom had called the real authorities an hour ago. I looked at the man I had been married to for 35 years and felt nothing but pity. He had thrown away everything real for something built on lies, and now he was going to lose it all. 6 months later, I stood in a Denver courtroom watching Robert being led away in handcuffs after his sentencing. Conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, embezzlement, and attempted false imprisonment. The charges had added up to 15 years in federal prison. Dr. Chen had received 10 years and the permanent loss of her medical license. The $400,000 had been recovered in full, along with an additional $150,000 in assets Robert had hidden. The court had awarded me everything: the house, the business, our retirement accounts, and a settlement from Dr. Anfra, Chen's malpractice insurance that would ensure my financial security for life. But the money was never really the point. "Mom," Jennifer said, taking my arm as we left the courthouse, "I need to tell you how sorry I am, how sorry we all are." "You believed what you were told by people you trusted," I replied, squeezing her hand. "That's not your fault." The healing process with my children had been slow but genuine. They had struggled with guilt over believing Robert's lies, but they had also marveled at my strength in exposing the truth. Our family bonds, tested by Robert's manipulation, had emerged stronger than ever. Michael had taken over Robert's construction business, which was thriving under honest management. David had moved back to Denver to be closer to family. Jennifer had started therapy of her own, with a properly licensed ethical therapist, to process the trauma of discovering her father's betrayal. "What will you do now?" David asked as we walked toward my car, a new sedan I had bought myself with some of the recovered money. "I'm thinking about writing a book," I said, "about recognizing manipulation, about trusting your instincts, about the importance of fighting for yourself even when everyone around you thinks you're wrong." The story had already gained national attention. News outlets had covered the case extensively, and I had received hundreds of letters from women who had experienced similar gaslighting in their own relationships. Many had found the courage to leave abusive situations after seeing that it was possible to fight back and win. Tom, my brother the retired detective, had become something of a celebrity himself for his role in gathering evidence. He was consulting with other law enforcement agencies on cases involving financial abuse and psychological manipulation. "Will you ever remarry?" Jennifer asked gently. I considered the question seriously. At 65, with financial independence and hard-won wisdom about human nature, the idea of romantic partnership felt both possible and unnecessary. "Maybe," I said, "but only if I meet someone who enhances my life rather than trying to control it. Someone who sees my strength as an asset rather than a threat." As we reached my car, I looked back at the courthouse where justice had finally been served. The woman who had walked into Dr. Chen's office 6 months ago, desperate to save her marriage, felt like a stranger to me now. That woman had been willing to sacrifice her own perceptions of reality to preserve a relationship built on lies. The woman standing here today knew her own worth. She trusted her instincts. She would never again allow anyone to make her question her own sanity for their convenience. "There's something else," I told my children as we prepared to leave. "I'm starting a foundation with some of the settlement money to help other women who are being financially and psychologically abused, to provide them with resources to document evidence and fight back. The Diane Matthews Foundation for Truth and Justice would be my legacy, proof that even the most elaborate schemes of manipulation could be defeated by courage, preparation, and the refusal to surrender." As I drove home through the streets of Denver, I thought about the anniversary celebration that had started this whole revelation. Robert had planned it as the final trap in his elaborate scheme to destroy me. Instead, it had become the beginning of my liberation. The mountain lodge where we had honeymooned 35 years ago would always hold special meaning now, not as the place where my marriage began, but as the place where I reclaimed my life. To everyone watching this story unfold, remember this: when something feels wrong, it probably is. When people try to make you question your own perceptions, ask yourself why. When someone claims to love you while systematically undermining your confidence and independence, that's not love, that's control. Trust yourself. Fight for yourself. You have more strength than you know. If this story has resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our uploads. And leave a comment below, telling us where you're watching from and what time it is there. Knowing you're out there gives me strength to keep sharing these important stories. Remember, you are stronger than you think, braver than you believe, and more valuable than anyone who tries to diminish you could ever understand. This is Diane Matthews, reminding you that justice may be delayed, but it is never denied to those who refuse to surrender their truth.